Hey, what is up, everybody?
Welcome back to Mile Higher Podcast, episode 102. And today we have a special guest on the show, and we're really excited because this is the first person that we've had on the show that we're not, personally friends with.
Right. Yes, today we have paranormal investigator Bryan Bonner from Rocky Mountain Paranormal with us today. And he has been investigating the paranormal for over 20 years, so he's got tons of experience. And specifically, we're going to be talking to him about a couple things. One, the Stan Romanek case, because that was actually how he reached out to us, was after he had seen our episode that we did on Stan Romanek. So he said that he's got a lot of tea for us about him and more to the story that we don't know or that we covered in our episode. So I'm very excited to see what he has to say about that.
He's also going to be telling us about the Stanley Hotel, which is another thing that we have done a podcast on, and we've been there several times. We actually went recently.
Yeah.
We attempted to have a paranormal experience, the four of us, Janelle plus her boyfriend, and it failed miserably. Nothing paranormal happened to us. We tried to have an investigation. It just did not work.
No, it really didn't. So I'm excited to talk to him about it because he's done a really in-depth investigation of the historic haunted Stanley Hotel. So we'll hear what he has to say. I'm sure he's got some interesting things to report.
Yeah. And let us know, you guys, if you want to see our Stanley Hotel vlog anyway, our failed paranormal experience. I think it'd be kind of funny. I'm sure the footage is hilarious, honestly.
Oh, I'm sure it is. So, but yeah, we're super excited to be having Bryan on the show today, and hopefully many more guests in our future, which I'm really looking forward to.
Yes.
But I want to thank our sponsors for today, Quip, Candid, and Upstart. Thank you guys for supporting the show. But let's go ahead and jump right into this week's news stories. The first one I've got for you is about NASA officially adding a space hotel to the International Space Station, which is pretty cool.
Can you imagine waking up in a space hotel?
How cool is that?
You can't beat that view.
No.
And that's gonna be the next thing for Instagram clout.
Oh
yeah,
like
having
it's the
a
ultimate
space as your backdrop. Girls are like taking butt pictures in front of a space station, like looking back at planet Earth.
And I know, like, I watched some streamers on Twitch, and they were talking about, like, Ninja should be the first Twitch streamer to live stream playing Fortnite or something from the International Space Station in the hotel.
Yeah, why do I feel like that would actually happen?
It honestly might. If there's anybody that's going to do it, I wouldn't be surprised if it was Ninja. But
maybe he can host a giant. What was that dance?
Oh yeah,
the show
floss,
flossing from space.
Yeah, space floss.
Space floss. That's amazing. I would love to see that.
But anyway, this is actually really moving into production here because NASA announced that they've picked the space station manufacturer Axiom Space to actually build sort of the pod that they're going to be attaching to it. It's like they put it up into space and then they'll dock it into the space station where they'll actually attach it. And their hope is that they want to create like an economy in the like low Earth orbit. So obviously it's not way out there, but they want to create like some tourism economy out there in space.
It's just so wild to think about that we're actually at that point. And this is only a couple years off.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, it says that they're going to hopefully shoot for later half of 2024. And apparently it's going to be a large window. It's going to have like a large windowed Earth observatory. So like a place where you can just kind of float, where you're inside this all glass sort of pod, but you can just look out and obviously not float away from the space station, but you can just kind of like gaze out at the Earth beneath you.
Imagine that experience.
Oh, it looks so cool.
So this has got to be so expensive. There's no way this is going to be affordable for the everyday person. This is for like the richest people on the planet.
Tickets going to cost upwards of $50 million.
Oh, $50 million.
$50 million.
That is steep. I honestly was not expecting that much. That's a lot.
Well,
damn.
If you think
my
about
ass
it,
is never going then.
but
there'll be no cloud on my Instagram.
Well, who knows? Maybe that cost will go down in 50 years from now. I mean, maybe. When we're old farts, we'll be able to go up there and, there'll be an Airbnb in space and you can just like stay for the night and come home.
Well, maybe they'll just keep attaching different pods and eventually it'll be like, you can stay in this hotel. And it's like the Vegas Strip.
Yeah. Well, that's what I think is going to happen because actually the International Space Station is set to be sort of decommissioned. Like they're going to decommission the International Space Station. Yeah.
Oh, wow. That's weird.
So a bunch of private companies are starting to, because it's old. It's been up there for a while.
So they're going to make another one?
Yeah, they're going to make another one or, they're on to bigger, better things, moon bases and Mars bases and stuff like that. And like Elon Musk's SpaceX, they're working on putting stuff into space for private people to take a ride. Like I think you can actually go into space with SpaceX for like $1 million.
Oh, so only $1 million? Okay.
It's still expensive, but it's not 50 million.
True.
But yeah, I mean, 50 million to experience zero gravity inside this like plush cabin. If you look at the inside of the pod, that's what you float around in, because there's, in space, there's not like a bed or anything, but it's kind of like this padded capsule that you float around in. I don't know exactly how long you get to stay up there, but I assume it'd probably be up there for a while, because it's not like, you can just come back the next day.
Yeah.
So they got to send something back to get you.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Why, okay, so when you go to space, you have to have a ton of training to go to space, right? Mm-hmm. So how is that going to work?
I know. I was thinking the same thing.
Like, how do you ensure that people aren't going to get sick? Or I'm not an expert. I don't know what the side effects are of going to space, but like, I know you have to train for a long time in order to be able to
withstand the G-force.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So how does that work on an everyday Joe Blow? And don't you think that you'd probably have to pass some type of like health exam before going up there? I wonder if you have to qualify.
Probably something like that. I would think, especially at first, because there's definitely risk in space travel. Totally. I'm sure you assume the risk though. If you're signing a thing, and But I wonder if there would be training, 'cause as far as like getting sick. Like maybe they can just like drug you though and like knock your ass out, and you wake up and you're there.
Maybe
they only need to do that for the astronauts, because they need to function and travel.
They just put you in like a bag and zip you up, and then you
like a nice comfy padded thing like this. You're just flying around in it like out.
Yeah, I don't know about that. You would think for $50 million, though, there's probably some sort of training and checkup, and they prepare you in some way. Because I mean, how many people are going to fork out $50 million right off the bat to go to space? It's not going to be that many people.
Yeah. Well, wow. I mean, it would be an incredible experience. I can't imagine what the view of Earth from an exterior point would be like. It looks so beautiful. I think really mind blowing.
It would be. It'd probably be the craziest experience that you could ever have, really, is being in space. And
definitely.
But this next story is one that Kendall brought to my attention, which I had no idea about. But apparently there are some Instagrammers out there who are posting about this no water regimen, where they replace fluids with water-rich fruit. Do you want to kind of explain a little bit?
Yeah, this has been going kind of viral amongst Twitter and Instagram, really. There's people on Instagram who promote their blog through Instagram, and there's there's thousands of fitness accounts, and everyone has a different take on the best way to lose weight or to be healthy or whatever it is. And the latest thing is this whole no water regimen, which obviously sounds incredibly dangerous and is incredibly dangerous. But I thought this was interesting because obviously there's a lot of alarm about this. There's a lot of people who are really concerned, including myself when I first read this, because, I've had an eating disorder. I think this is extremely triggering, especially anything like huge fasts like this. A lot of it's where they promote you don't drink or eat.
Dry fasting. Yeah.
And they like only have green tea. And I mean, that's extremely dangerous. But what they were talking about, and none of the articles really explained this, is something that goes back to our water episode. They're basically talking about how they want to consume only water that is alive. So if you listen to our episode about water, this is very complicated to even get into. There's theories around water that it can be alive or dead. Right. And that's water that comes from our tap is dead because of the way that it's filtered, and there's
just
a whole science
process
behind
of it. Yeah. I mean, I can kind of explain a little bit. So when we're talking about dead water, we're talking about water that has, from the source of where it was, first pulled in, that water travels through a very, very long way through all sorts of pipes that, if you think about, never get cleaned, or how old are some of these pipes? That water's all running through it. And then eventually it's run through filtration. They add chemicals to it, including fluoride and chlorine and all these other things to try to purify and clean it. But by the time that it gets to you and, you pour a cup of water out of your tap water, according to some, the water is no longer living, because it's essentially kind of endured all of those different things and lacks killed it.
Energetics, it lacks healing information and minerals. And this is just a theory. It's according to some people. We're not saying it as if it's true. But yeah, that's their argument really, is that they don't want to drink still water that's from a tap or bottled water because it's all dead. So they're eating a ton of fruit and water-rich foods, and they're arguing that if you eat enough healthy, organic foods, that there should be enough water in that to sustain your body,
right?
Which most people don't know how to do that. I feel like that's extremely difficult. It's a really dangerous idea. I just thought it was interesting, their reasoning behind it.
Yeah.
And I just thought it was a kind of obviously a controversial idea.
Right. Well, I mean, their whole thing is that, if you drink cucumber water or watermelon, there's going to be more nutrients and minerals in it.
Yeah.
Versus, your tap water or something like that.
Which does make sense. But the whole thing is that gets me is like, great, promote more use of, eat a lot more fruits and more water, nutrient vegetables and organic stuff. That's all great. But just why cut out the water completely?
Right.
Why be like,
Right.
no water?
I think it's weird that, I understand that they want to eat organic foods, but if you actually do your research about the food industry, organic doesn't really mean a whole lot.
Right.
If you're going to, still buy it through huge industrial farms and such, it's, I guess, perhaps better for you. But by the time your food travels from being picked to the grocery store, even if it's at Whole Foods or whatever, it's still lost so much nutrients that it's not like it would be, I guess, a little different if you were growing your own food.
You have like a farm outside of your house with everything.
Organic is really, I think, a marketing scheme, to be honest, for the most part. So
Yeah. And I understand that. And what do you think about this whole just not drinking water thing?
well, yeah, then there's people who are doing like dry fasts. That's like the next thing is where they're drinking very minimal water for like days.
What's the point? I don't get that.
I don't know. I don't know enough about it. I don't know the argument of it, but it just sounds like, we are 70% water. Don't quote me on that. It could be more.
Yeah.
And so why are you depriving yourself of the most, the thing that we need the very most? I guess.
I guess it's an interesting argument to think that if you are having enough fruit, that maybe you can get all your water naturally. And that's great for people who are able to do that. And like I said, if you have like a farm outside of your house, but being able to maintain that lifestyle is so unrealistic, and promoting it to the masses I can see it as very dangerous.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I don't know. I thought it was interesting, their reasoning behind it. I wanted to know what all of you guys thought.
Yeah, and just the whole idea of living versus dead water is a very interesting concept.
Very
that
controversial.
is controversial.
A lot of people can't even wrap their head around it.
A lot of people think it's bullshit, but there's definitely been some studies that does prove that water can be living and it can be dead, and maybe even conscious in that sense. So go back and listen to the water episode if you are still confused about what we're talking about. So before we bring Bryan on, we would like to thank our sponsors for today. As you guys know, we have been users of the Quip electric toothbrush for a while now, and I gotta say, it is the best toothbrush money can buy. Brushing your teeth is super important to your oral hygiene and overall just feels good. What I love about Quip is that it has a built-in timer, so you always get that perfect 2-minute clean, and it alerts you when to change sides of your mouth. Not only does Quip have the Tesla of toothbrushes, but they also started offering the Quip Floss Dispenser, which comes with pre-marked string to help you use just enough. The best part about Quip is that it's super easy to use because they deliver you a fresh brush head, floss, and toothpaste refills right to your door every 3 months with free shipping, so your routine is always right. Join over 3 million healthy mouths and get Quip today, starting at $25. And if you go to getquip.com/milehigher right now, you'll get your first refill free. That's your first refill free at getquip.com/milehigher. GETQUIP.com/milehigher. Quip, the good habits company.
Have you ever wanted to straighten your teeth but don't want to deal with the cost or the hassle of getting traditional braces? Well, that's where you've got to check out Candid. They deliver clear aligners directly to your door, and it includes remote monitoring by your orthodontist throughout the treatment. This means that you can get the same treatment oversight that you'd get by seeing an orthodontist in person without the inconvenient office visits, all for a fraction of the cost. Your orthodontist will keep an eye on your treatment from anywhere. Unlike braces, Candid's aligners are comfortable, removable, and totally invisible, so you can quietly transform your smile without anyone noticing a thing. Learn more about Candid's process and get a complimentary 3D scan of your teeth at a Candid studio near you. So if you're ready to take that first step towards straighter teeth, you can check out Candid at candidco.com/milehigher with the code milehigher for $75 off. That's candidco.com/milehigher with the code milehigher for $75 off.
As most of us have found out the hard way, getting into debt is easy, but getting out is hard, especially if your credit score isn't great. Thankfully, now there's Upstart.com, the revolutionary lending platform that knows you're more than just your credit score and offers smarter interest rates to help you pay off high-interest credit card debt. Upstart would have been a huge help to me a few years ago when I racked up a bunch of credit card debt. What I like about Upstart is that they also go beyond the traditional credit score when assessing your credit worthiness. They actually reward you based on your education and job history in the form of a smarter rate. They make it fast, simple, and easy to check your rate. Since it's just a soft pull, it won't affect your credit score. The hard pull comes if you accept your rate. The best part, once the loan is approved and accepted, most people get their funds the very next business day. Over 400,000 people have used Upstart to pay off credit cards or meet their financial goals. Free yourself from the burden of high-interest credit card debt by consolidating everything into one monthly payment. See why Upstart is ranked number 1 in their category with over 300 businesses on Trustpilot, and hurry to upstart.com/milehigher to find out how low your Upstart rate is. Checking your rate only takes a few minutes. That's upstart.com/milehigher. All right, guys, we are here with Bryan Bonner from Rocky Mountain Paranormal. Thank you so much for coming on the show today.
Yes.
You didn't tell me that you were in like New Mexico, but other than that, yeah, we're good.
So yeah, I wanted to just kind of start and, kind of give people an idea of who you are and how'd you get into paranormal and, kind of your background, education, that kind of thing.
Wow, that's a lot.
Yeah.
That's a lot.
How did I get into it? Bad choices, heavy drinking. No, it's kind of an interesting, I'll give you my stock answer because it's always fun.
That's perfect.
And it brings up the previous thing we were talking about. So years and years and years ago when I was a wee one, as they say, my mother loved horror movies. My father had his own business, so he's not around to watch the horror movies. She wants somebody to watch horror movies with her, so I get volunteered. And, a 7-year-old watching The Exorcist isn't necessarily a good idea.
Yeah.
So I'm getting a little freaked out by this stuff. She's like, okay, here's the deal. It's all fake. It's all made up. This is how the movies are made. This is how the special effects are done. Kind of breaks it all down for me. And now I'm some sort of like overly obsessed horror movie nerd. But on top of that, I started watching movies growing up and they're like, based on actual events,
right?
Inspired by a true story.
Yeah.
I'm like, now hold on a minute. Mom said that these weren't real.
Yeah.
So as time went on, it was back in the late 90s, I decided there's got to be somebody actually looking into this. And I looked around, and at the time, there were 2 other groups in town. And the way that they were doing it is probably no different than anybody's doing it right now. But I was like, it can be done better than that. There's got to be some science put behind this.
Right.
So rather than dive in with them, me and other person who started this with me, we started it up and we've been going for 21 years now.
Wow.
So were
we're
you
old enough to drink now?
Yeah. Just a little bit. So were you like, you come into this and you see everybody else around you and you don't necessarily like their approach or, their method for investigating the paranormal?
Well, here I have a segue for you.
Perfect.
The reason that I didn't believe most of what they were showing me is it was photographic.
Uh-huh.
And my background, my education, my college experience is in photography.
Mm-hmm.
I get cameras. I understand how they work. And they're showing me all of these things going, look, it's a ghost. And I'm like, no, it isn't. This is not.
Right.
And it just kept getting worse and worse with what they were showing me. So I decided it's time that somebody needs to take a more scientific, logical approach to this.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of how it got started. But that was the thing, is what other people were doing was obviously not what the proof needed to be.
Right. Because, this is unexplained phenomena. So I think the big thing we should all be trying to do is figure out if this unexplained phenomena is real phenomena or not.
Right. And I think one of the things for evidence, let's say you're a paranormal investigator and you have what you believe is proof of something. you need to ask yourself, if I was to take this to the scientific community, not the paranormal community, but the real scientific community, and pose to them that this is proof of something, would they laugh me out of the room?
Right.
And if the answer is no, good, take it to them. Let's see what we can do, because we need bigger brains than what we have to keep studying this. And that's where the breakdown usually happens. It's like somebody in your own group can explain what this is. So
Yeah.
it's not proof.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I think that, a lot of these paranormal topics, especially when you get into like ufology and just with, looking at spirits and ghosts and things like that, when you do dig into the science, you start realizing that there is very, very complex science involved with trying to explain dimensions and explaining time and space and time travel and all these different components that are often associated with like ufology and stuff. And
Exactly. But then you have the exact opposite problem of they try and use science against you. It's, I don't understand quantum physics, therefore it proves ghosts or it proves UFOs. And that's one of those words that we really need to look at the proper use of it is quantum physics. Nobody, the great quote was, if you believe that you understood quantum physics, you're wrong. That's that's the whole point.
Yeah.
And people use it to explain so many different things. UFO people use it. The ghost researchers, they're like, oh yeah, it's part of the quantum theory. No, it isn't.
right.
You don't understand it, therefore, well, it's kind of like that, we were saying with the Occam's razor. The simplest explanation is usually the most accurate one.
Right.
And jumping to the conclusion of, I don't know what it is, therefore it is a X,
Right.
does not follow any protocols of logic or science.
And it doesn't do anything good for either communities, paranormal
No.
or UFO, because like we said, then, who's going to believe you if,
Absolutely.
right. Yeah. And there's just so much bullshit being spread. And we have that issue every time we look at any type of paranormal case or UFO case, is just like trying to figure out what's there that is possibly, maybe there's something to it. And then, how much of what they're saying is actually even something you can consider.
Right.
And it's hard. Like a lot of it is just feels like a fairy tale a lot of the time.
Well, and I'll give you a precursor for something later. I know you wanted to talk about the Stanley Hotel.
Yes, we do.
I'll just load it with this. One of the things that we had to look into wasn't the claims of ghosts, but why they claimed the ghosts were there in the first place.
Interesting.
And that's
yeah.
one of the things you really need to look at is the story behind the story, the motive, or
Right.
if people are saying, well, this ghost must be here because there's an electromagnetic field of X.
Yeah.
So what's that mean? Why does that make it a ghost?
Right.
So you have to go back and look at the backstory.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, and I think it really comes down to, if you take the scientific approach of this, you start looking at, well, what is a ghost and what is a spirit? What is a haunting? And when you start looking at that, you immediately are going off based on a set of beliefs.
Right. You're in a belief system at that
Right.
point.
At that point. So there's not anything concrete or scientific about what a spirit is, because we haven't been able to prove, a spiritual realm or the other side or anything like that.
See, while I completely agree with you, I know there's people listening.
Yeah.
They're punching their screen. They're, of course there's proof.
Right.
No, there isn't.
Unfortunately, yeah, that's the reality of it.
It would be cool if there was, but
Real concrete
far.
proof, evidence.
Right. Well, and that's what we're still trying to figure out. And that's why I think the paranormal is an important field to investigate. And there should be more people like yourself and more, scientifically based teams out there actively looking into these things. Because, I believe that there is unexplained phenomena out there. It's just, it's figuring out how to research it and produce results and test it is the difficult part, because it's so random, it's so sporadic that you can't go into even somewhere that's highly haunted and expect to sit there and study, paranormal activity for a few days. It doesn't work like that.
well, and unfortunately, that's how a lot of quote paranormal investigators approach it, is a very short amount of time. And I tell people, I want you to, let's say we're going to a haunting. I want you to keep a diary, and I want to know when anything happens. If you perceive it to be paranormal, whatever it may be, I don't care. Just keep a journal for me. Because if whatever it is happening, paranormal or otherwise, if there's a pattern to it, maybe the furnace turns on every night at 2 o'clock in the morning, whatever. If we're there at noon, we're not going to be able to witness it. So we need to bring down the statistics as much as possible. And even then, when people are believing that something's happening to them, it feels like it's happening all the time. And generally, if you have them keep a diary, do that sort of a thing, they go, oh, this isn't happening all the time.
Yeah.
It feels like it's happening all the time. And, when do we go in? Okay, well, it's happening every day at noon. Good, we'll be there someday at noon. But most of these paranormal groups, they're like, well, we'll be there for a couple of hours that night.
Yeah.
And the walls bleed and heads spin.
Yeah.
It's like every place you go, this happens. Yeah. And you're in this little tiny window. I think there may be something else going on.
Yeah.
Yeah, especially if you can just roll in and immediately start capturing things. I feel like
It
that's
seems like
suspect at
Exactly.
the very least.
Yeah, and of course they're going to get desperate if they're running out of time. There's a production crew, there's people who are paid to be there and stuff. You only have a certain amount of time. So if it doesn't happen on its own, people force things to happen.
And I mean, we've had days, we've had investigations that have gone on for 4, 5, 6 days straight. And even those, nothing. But you talking about a production company, the minute that you start getting into any kind of a production, there's no paranormal investigation going on.
Right. It's not, it's a production at that point.
My black badge of dishonor, I was on Ghost Hunters.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
That's an experience.
Oh,
I
I'm
want to
sure.
hear about that.
Yeah, please tell us.
It's not what you would expect it to be.
Really?
And this was back before I kind of take my own guilt out of this. I think it's my fault the show fell apart.
Oh, wow.
Because
Really?
for the first season, they actually did pretty good. They didn't find anything, but they were explaining things. Second season was kind of along that way until they went to the Stanley Hotel. Keep bringing it up. And that's when a lot of things happened and the production company went, hey, there's more people watching this. The advertisers want to come in. The night before they were at the Stanley Hotel was the episode that I did with them.
Interesting.
And they called me up and they're like, you want to be on the one with the Stanley? I said, I've got to work tomorrow. I've been on the show. I'm good. I just want to know if it would have been different
If you were there.
if I would have been there.
Yeah.
But, just some of the things they're like, here's the investigation starting. We've been here for, it was like, 6 or 7 hours into the investigation. We were there for 4 hours.
Oh, just
Stretch the
playing with the
time and stuff.
times and everything.
And just everything. It's
Oh,
like,
I'm sure.
Like, go ahead and, walk through that room and try and get a recording of something. Okay. Well, the light wasn't quite right. Go ahead and do that again. And it's like, really?
Yeah.
It becomes like a movie set.
It
seems
is.
Oh,
like.
totally.
It's-
There's a job to get done.
Well, and that's the thing. One of the terrifying experiences I had on that show is I was walking down this dark hallway, kind of checking out the room, seeing what's going on, and I turned the corner, and I swear to you, it was Darth Vader.
Wow.
It was their sound guy, and he's got all his equipment on his chest. So
Yeah.
there's all these lights running across. I'm like, never sneak up on me like that again. But that's the thing. They've got so much crew wandering around because
Yeah,
you've got producers
totally.
and directors and sound guys and camera guys and lighting people. And if any self-respecting ghost wouldn't show up on it because there's too many
That's what
people
I'm
already.
saying. Yeah, and we tried to do our own. We were thinking maybe we'll do a YouTube series trying to investigate and see if anything happens. And we go to Stanley and we're all excited. Nothing. And I was like, I can see how people in this moment are like, all right, well, we better start making shit up because we're not going to have a production if we don't.
You have to.
Yeah. So
You have to start creating,
Yeah.
the content. And
yeah.
And that's why you bring in, the psychics and things like that because that's content automatically.
Right. Exactly. And I'm curious about what you think about like a spirit box. Do you believe in those or that term for it?
I believe in the term. I know they exist.
Yeah, because that's like a big thing on YouTube right now is people that make spirit box videos. And I'm
connect
just
with
curious.
dead
And some
ones.
people use apps.
People are going to hate me, but here
No,
we go.
please tell us.
So, back in the early 2000s, there was a guy, his name was Frank Sumption. Frank worked for the City of Littleton school system as a school maintenance wiring kind of guy. He was just average guy. And he had read this article in Popular Science about using sections of words to talk to something, ghosts, probably. And he took this concept. He went to the junkyard and he grabbed himself a radio out of a car that uses voltage to tune to the different frequencies. So at 1 volt, it's at 800, and the other one, it's just whatever voltage you're at, it tunes to that specific channel. And he hooked a random voltage generator up to it. So now it hops, and you can do it 2 different ways. You can either hop across to different channels, or you can do a linear scan.
Right. Yeah.
Which is kind of like taking an old radio and turning it on.
Like tuning it to
Exactly. Just don't stop.
Right.
And initially, he was talking to aliens with this thing.
Interesting.
And they were, it was really interesting because he has this whole, the aliens were watching him, and he was some sort of a lost princess of theirs. He was their purple princess.
Wow. Immediately divulging this information to him.
Frank was cross-dressing at the time that this happened.
Gotcha.
Okay.
Nothing against that.
Yeah.
That's cool. But for him, it was just a little bizarre. And then he lost a child. And in the middle of one of his sessions, he heard this child talking. He's like, it talks to dead people too. And he had a little bit of a community with him, but then another local paranormal investigator, I use the word lightly, showed up and said, I'd really like to play with one of those. And he gave him one.
Interesting.
And that paranormal investigator's business took off very well. And I do mean business, because all of a sudden he's doing readings with it.
Oh, wow.
Oh, wow.
And touring the world. Wow. Doing ghost box sessions.
Interesting.
And effectively, what you're listening to is a broken radio. Now, they say that the way that this works is the spirits manifest the energy to change the frequency at the right time to be able to form these words. And that's got to be the most complex
way to communicate.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, a trans medium that just talks to you makes more sense.
Yeah.
And that doesn't make a lot of sense, but still, that makes more sense. And the paranormal investigator that did that came up with an answer for that. There's a spirit technician on the other side with the accompanying box. So they communicate together, so they have to synchronize these boxes, and then the spirits it gets deep.
Yeah, that's wild.
And of course, then they were like, well, hey, anybody can do this. And he's like, no, there's only 12 chosen people that can interpret what the boxes say.
Chosen ones.
Of course. There's nothing cult-like that statement.
Exactly.
God. What do you think about these apps that are showing up on the App Store for your phone,
We were
where
just
it's
playing
a
one the other night.
sound
laughing.
bank and
I have
it's
all
words?
of them.
Yeah.
And I don't
What's the one we
believe any of
downloaded? Like Necro.
Necrophone, probably.
Yeah,
yeah.
something like that. Yeah.
I think the most popular one is Ghost Radar.
Okay.
Which is funny because I do a lot of public talks, things like that, and I'll find people using that. They're like wandering around where we are, and I'm like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
They're like, well, there's a ghost over there. I was like, you realize this is the same company that makes like the werewolf finder.
Right. And they're playing a loop. Like people play them and eventually it starts looping the radio frequencies and the voices.
Exactly. And the thing is, if you look at any of these apps, all of them, somewhere in the agreement that you have to agree to, it says for entertainment purposes only.
Yeah.
Right.
They can't advertise it as a legitimate way to communicate.
And you read the reviews and it seems like a lot of people know that. And they're like, this is a fun little thing to fool people with. But there's people out there who's like, yeah, this is the best one I've used.
And the ghost box business is extremely popular right now. There are people making every kind of a design that you can imagine and charging a fortune.
We bought one.
So it's like, let me break your radio and then I'll sell it back to you.
Seriously, that's all it sounded like. It did nothing.
Well, and I did an experiment kind of accidentally. Used to be a co-host of a theatrical seance. And we wanted to do a ghost box-like session. Now, we did have one of the real ones,
Uh-huh.
but we didn't want to use it because we were doing kind of a period piece.
Yeah.
So I got this old antique radio, gutted it,
Nice.
and took like, I think it was 2 minutes of audio from one of these ghost boxes, put it onto an iPod, and put the iPod and the speaker inside this antique radio. And when you played it, it just did this loop.
Yep.
So it was always the same
Sounds,
sound.
Yeah.
And we get this, group of usually 13 people together. And we knew from talking to them what word they may be looking for. So we start pointing them towards, did you hear that? And regardless of what it was, whatever they wanted to hear is what they heard
What
from
you're
it.
going to hear. Exactly.
And it was the same audio clip every time. And that's how it is with, I'm going to say all ghost hunting equipment. There's two types of ghost hunting equipment. There's the stuff that wasn't designed for ghost hunting, which is what I generally use.
Okay.
A camera,
Yeah.
a recorder.
Standard stuff for other purposes.
Right.
Yeah.
But you need to understand how it works, what limits it has, and be able to use it for whatever it was designed for in the first place. But then there's the other stuff that was designed for ghost hunting. So, and the way I explain this to people is you're using a piece of equipment that's unproven to prove something that's never been proven.
That's exactly
There's
right.
two major flaws there.
Yeah.
And until you can say absolutely the dead exist and communicate this way, and this is how we do it with this device, there's too many breakpoints in there.
Yeah. Pretty much meaningless at that
Definitely.
point. Yeah. Yeah. That's how, yeah. I'm not going to lie. I did buy some of that ghost hunting
I
equipment.
got a
And
ton
Well,
of
we
it.
just wanted to play with it. We
yeah,
wanted
it
to
was
see
just,
if anything happened. Nothing happened.
Well, and I'm the first person that'll go out and buy the stuff just to see how it works.
Yeah.
it was
Yeah,
more
it
out
was
of
fun. It was-
curiosity. Like, I just
yeah.
want to see, how,
Just really goofing around.
what
I'll
full
get-
spectrum light looks like and everything.
Okay, so paranormal investigation quiz here for the both of you.
All right.
So, when a ghost is trying to manifest or move something or do some sort of an action, whatever it may be, we go into the room and the energy is being taken away from something, hence, battery on the iPad. So, when that energy is exchanged, what do we look for? The ghost is using the energy in the room.
Right.
What does everybody claim is happening?
Oh, they drained the battery?
Right, but
Yeah.
But when that happens, I'll hint you here. They look for cold spots.
Right. Yeah.
Oh.
Okay,
The temperature change.
right,
Yeah.
and that's why they say is because there's some sort of an exchange. of
Right.
energy.
Right.
Now comes the science quiz. Forget your ghost hunting. Let's go back to school. Anytime there's an exchange of energy, the byproduct is
Is it heat?
yes, it's
Yeah.
heat.
I was going to
Yeah.
say. Ding, ding, ding.
Absolutely.
Still want to sound
Good job.
stupid.
So by their own conclusions,
That doesn't even make sense.
physics behind it is wrong.
Mm-hmm.
So if that was the case, the byproduct should be heat.
Right.
So if anything,
Doesn't
we're
make
looking
sense
a
for it to be
hot spot,
cold. Yeah.
No.
right? It breaks the laws of physics.
Right.
So do you think they use cold because it just sounds creepy? And
No, they use cold because think about this: when you get scared, you get chills.
yeah. Oh, yeah.
So it's to you, it's perceived as cold.
Right.
Now they'll say, but we're using like non-contact thermometers, which work on the same concept as the thermal cameras.
Right.
So they'll pan across, and that's what I was getting to with the thermal camera. In the training for thermal cameras, they mention one thing that's very important. Thermal imaging technology is only capable of measuring surface temperatures. It
Okay.
has to be a hard surface.
Right.
A hard, reflective by infrared standards
Right.
surface.
Right.
So, and I've tested this with the little thermal meters too.
Yeah.
That if you are in a room, let's say we set up a either thermal camera or just a little handheld measure going against the wall over there,
Mm-hmm.
and I put a temperature sensor on the wall, and it's going to tell us what the wall is. And now we measure that wall with either one of the two devices. We know what the temperature of that wall is. I can take the middle of the room, and I can take it sub-zero. I can take it above 200-300 degrees. I can put in mist, smoke, whatever. it's really good at measuring that wall.
Right.
Yeah.
So if you think that there's a temperature change, it's probably because you're aiming at something that is cooling at a different rate or heating at a different rate than whatever else is in the room.
Everything around
So as
it.
they're going around, they'll get to, they're scanning. And
Yeah.
they're actually looking at a window.
Yeah.
And, well, of course, it's outside.
Right.
It's glass, so it's going to be a different temperature.
Yeah, we saw that on ours.
It's not really an effective way to detect whether or not there's a spirit manifesting itself.
It's a really good way to detect for things like heating and air conditioning problems, bad wiring in the walls, which is what they were designed for.
right.
Uh-huh.
Now, can they be used in paranormal investigations? Absolutely, because, is there a weird noise coming from this wall? Well, let's look and see, is there a heating problem? Is there an electrical problem? So it can be used, but not exactly the way that it's being
Right.
used.
So like the ghost hunters that go into, they go to a place that's really haunted. They go somewhere where maybe somebody died in this closet, and they go in the closet, and all of a sudden they're like, oh my God, the temperature's dropped. I feel cold.
Of course,
feel
there's no air
chills.
circulation in that room, and now you're afraid, so it's even worse.
Right.
But the one that was one of my favorites on Ghost Hunters, they were in this place, and they're looking at a bunch of lockers on one side of the room, and they see the shape of a person. They're like, roll it back, and it's one of their favorite ones because there's this shape of a person. It's a reflective surface. They took a picture of themselves because
geez.
the heat radiated from them bounced back just like light would.
Oh my God.
What would you say is the percentage of the paranormal claims that are just ordinary stuff that people are confusing with something paranormal?
Most of it.
Yeah.
And that's the thing, because of the popularity of the paranormal media, one way or the other, people are so oversensitized right now. So everything is a ghost because they've been told that.
Totally.
And I don't blame them. It's the way that, humans work. It's a cultural thing.
Yeah.
But there's the other case of people faking things.
Right.
Now, I can honestly say we've never gone to a case where people were intentionally faking anything.
Which, why would they do that in the first place?
Well, if you're bringing in a production company. But at the same time, a lot of people who are having a paranormal team come out to their house may just need somebody to talk to. And we've had that a lot where it's like, there's nothing going on in their house. They haven't even talked about ghosts. They needed someone to talk to. We had a woman who, this is really depressing, but I'll bring it up anyway. She called us to her home, and she had some paranormal claims. And we said, well, we'll come up. There's going to be like 3 of us, and we'll spend the night there and see what we can figure out. She was really excited about it, and we got up there, and it turns out she has no relatives, nobody to talk to, and she'd just been diagnosed with cancer, and she was terminal.
Oh, geez.
And
Yeah.
she just wanted somebody to talk to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I looked at everybody, and I was like, okay, guys, here's the deal. Go grab a cup of coffee. We're here to help this woman through the night. That's it.
That's sweet.
And that's the thing is you need to understand what people need and what they're asking for. And it's not always the ghost story.
Right.
They just used it to get you in there so they had somebody to talk to.
Interesting.
If you know any like police or fire, there's a lot of times like that you'll have
I'm sure.
one person that constantly calls for help because they want somebody to talk
Yeah.
to.
Yeah. They just want a human connection with
Exactly.
somebody. Yeah. So this has always been interesting to me. What are your thoughts about a building or a structure or objects becoming possessed by a spirit? That's kind of all the rage these days. Like, I'm sure you've heard of Zach Bagans' haunted museum in Las Vegas, where he's got all these haunted objects, and people
I
have
have
experiences
one
in
of
them.
those at home, too.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. You have your own haunted museum at your house.
Yeah.
That's the thing is, by saying it's a haunted item, first you have to come to the conclusion you've proved that it's haunted, which I would stop them at that step and say, how have you done that?
Right.
Does it have a creepy history? Yeah, probably.
Right. It's either like, involved with death in some way, shape, or form, or they claim it's been cursed or something like
Someone's
that.
favorite thing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's not proof that it's haunted.
Mm-hmm.
Will that psychologically get people to have experiences when they're around it, when they're told a ghost story? Absolutely. And I think that's one of the things that we see with the traditional haunted locations is people love a good ghost story. They like to be scared. And these legends continue because of that. And it's like on one of our investigations, I always say, I had a really weird experience here. But if you look at it, I'd been up for 36 hours. I'd been eating junk food the entire time. I spent 12 hours with the family telling me really scary stories about this one room. And now it's the middle of the night and I'm locked in there in the dark.
Yeah, there's some natural bias.
Yeah,
there.
there's no way I could look at this logically.
Right.
So, could it be haunted with that? I have to stay open to the possibility, but I haven't seen the proof yet. And saying haunted museum, I'll give you an example. Right next to my desk is a piece of Ed Gein's shed.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
If anything was going to be haunted, that's one of the ones that, it's like,
You would think,
that's
yeah.
disturbing.
Yeah.
There were people gutted like deers in that shed.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So should it be cursed? I would think so.
Mm-hmm.
So
You would think it would absorb that negative, evil
Exactly.
energy in some way. Yeah.
okay, I'm going to keep doing this to you. Paranormal pop quiz.
I like it.
Energy.
Yeah.
What is energy?
Yeah.
Define.
What is energy?
Yeah.
It's true.
Everybody in the paranormal world they go crazy. It's the energy. It's the energy.
Right. Well, people associate that term with like spirituality. They
Right.
immediately connect it to your spirit and your soul and everything. And
Exactly. And me in the scientific world, if we need a different word than that,
Yeah.
because energy by definition is a quote measurable
Right.
work unit,
right,
So I'm like,
joules
okay,
or whatever,
right,
something.
that means it's
yeah.
measurable, and
That's very true.
I've called many people on that. They're like, "Can you sense the energy coming off of that?" And I was like, "If there's energy coming off that, I can measure it." coming
Yeah.
off of
Right.
Right.
Whether it's degrees or something.
Right.
Yeah.
It's like the wrong word.
Yeah, and that's the thing. There's a lot of words that have been hijacked that have taken on bad connotations for that. Skeptic.
Mhm.
I mean, skeptic is somebody that's open to all possibilities based on whatever criteria is available.
Right.
But what everybody takes it for is non-believing cynic.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's
And-
been skewed that way
right,
for
and you've
sure.
got cynics on both sides, the skeptic in the middle, and because people in the skeptical world want answers, and people in the believers world are accepted whatever they want to believe, the skeptic has become the non-believer.
Yeah. Yeah. Or you're some type of debunker. Like you're just
Exactly.
out here trying to debunk everything.
To quote one of my favorite people, you can't debunk something that's not bunk in the first place.
It's a good one.
I like that.
So, just in your experience, I wanted to know, what types of claims or paranormal phenomena have you investigated? Like, kind of give us like a aerial view of what you've been involved in case wise, just
It's a lot.
for a general
if you
overview.
can imagine it, hauntings, lots and lots and lots of
Yeah.
supposed hauntings, both, like you were kind of alluding to, haunted people, haunted places, haunted items. We've done a lot of people claiming to be possessed. A little cryptid stuff, not a lot. Unfortunately, a lot of UFO stuff. And we also investigate things like people claiming they have paranormal powers. So
Sure.
we've investigated people who claim that they can move things with their mind, or they can have some sort of psychic skill, or even weirder than that, devices that will cure diseases or have some sort of special powers. And, all this falls under this really weird umbrella of paranormal. And I like that fact, because if it was just the ghost stuff, or it was just,
Yeah.
X, it gets boring really quick.
It would.
Oh, I bet.
But, with this huge umbrella, 20 years into it, and I'm still having fun. So,
Doing stuff all the time.
Yeah. Well, there's always new stuff and new things that pop up with it because it doesn't, box you into one thing.
Right.
Paranormal meaning anything that's out
Right.
of the ordinary.
But
you
I
know?
will tell you, especially with the bizarre claims of, like I was saying, devices, things like that, it really has ruined my life, because I can't open a magazine or turn on a television without hearing an advertisement. And I am down the rabbit hole with whatever it was, because I'm like, no, whatever they just said cannot be real.
Yeah.
And we're living in a time where snake oil is back. So there's a lot of people selling a lot of things that aren't real out there. And I've learned to not watch commercial television because of it, because I will go straight down that and
Yeah.
go crazy with it. But even in the
Interesting.
paranormal stuff, it's like I can't turn on a paranormal TV show anymore because
Oh, I'm sure.
I get angry.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sure.
I can imagine.
Yeah.
I can watch it with a big group of people and a lot of alcohol. That's the
Yeah.
only way.
And
I can
laugh
take
your
it.
ass off the whole time.
Treat
is
it like a comedy.
comedy. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's unfortunate that it's unfortunate that this whole field is going in that direction. And it all comes back to money too. I mean,
does.
that's the thing is with everything, it all comes back to money, and people are interested in horror movies. So like, how can we segue that into,
Right.
this paranormal investigation? Because, I've seen quite a bit of paranormal investigation content, and oftentimes I'm left just like, I didn't see anything there. This just all seems like it was blown out of proportion or completely faked or made up completely in order to get, people that are too naive to realize what's actually going on to continue watching it. And
that's not a new thing. I mean, if you go back, I'll say 1980, I'm guessing, there was a movie called The Changeling. George C. Scott.
I've seen the remake of it, but
See the original.
I bet. I'm sure it's
The
brutal.
original is amazing,
Really?
but they touch on a lot of ghost hunting techniques
Oh,
that
interesting.
are pretty still current. Still not working, but still pretty current. But it really goes to show you that, even 40 years ago, it was kind of the thing. We're going to bring the ghost hunting into it. And to make it even better than that, that movie was actually based on a true story, air quotes there, from a house that was right next door to Cheeseman Park. So,
Oh, really?
local lore.
yeah.
Interesting.
Huh. Well, I want to move into the Stanley Hotel before we talk about Stan Romanek and the UFO stuff. Since we've already been kind of talking about the Stanley loosely a little bit, so we obviously had our own experience with the Stanley this past week or two, and like we said, we had nothing, no experience whatsoever. We paid extra money to stay in a spirited room on the 4th floor. That's supposed to
Did
be.
you stay in 401?
No, we stayed in 413. which I was just
Yeah,
like,
the ghost rooms are expanding because
yeah.
I was gonna say I don't even think that was not part of the original story.
Well, they have their little sheet with like the stories behind
Yeah.
each of the rooms, and it was just like the most generic story. Like there's a man in old-fashioned clothing that's stands in the corner or something and watches you.
Well, a place we used to go a lot actually put little like data entry logs in each one of their rooms and said if you have an experience, write it
Interesting,
down.
huh?
And yeah, it went from nothing to everybody was having walls.
Oh, I'm
bleed by
sure.
the time it was over.
Mm-hmm.
But with the Stanley, I'm not surprised you didn't have an experience
Yeah.
there. And for a few reasons. Was it an absolute freak show of ghost hunters wandering around trying to get things while you were there?
No,
No.
actually, we were there when nobody was
Dead
there. It
season.
was very empty, and
Yeah, like we went around like 11 at night, and I mean, we couldn't even find an employee. There was no one in the entire hotel. We were like walked through the whole thing and didn't see a soul.
That's a paranormal experience right there.
yeah, exactly. Yeah. Normally, I felt like there's probably tons of people roaming around.
Yeah, we
trying to-
thought there would be.
Yeah, it was
Every
ghostly.
time we've been up there for any type of overnight or anything like that, you can't do anything because there's people just wandering around
Really?
taking pictures. And the minute they find out, you're the ghost hunters,
Yeah.
they will not leave you alone.
Oh, I'm sure.
They come
yeah.
look at my pictures and come up here and tell me what I've just seen. So you turn into tour guide instead of
Yeah.
Right.
investigator, but it's fun.
Yeah.
Uh,
You did from what I read, you did a pretty in-depth investigation. Was that in 2007? Was that with the Ghost Hunters
no.
TV, or is that something different?
We've had a few experiences up there, and I don't mean paranormal. The first time we got called up there, we got called up by a production company that was, quote, doing a documentary about the ghosts, and they wanted a local paranormal team to represent. Would we like to do it? Absolutely.
Yeah.
Why not?
Right.
So we went up there, and they gave us the world. We had 401, 217, whatever the room over in the manor house is. They gave us the entire concert
wow.
hall.
Wow.
We had everything.
Mm-hmm.
And not enough equipment or people to cover it, but we did our best.
Yeah.
Well, we didn't realize that this was part of a bigger documentary, that there were all sorts of very well-known ghost hunter types in there.
Oh,
who
interesting.
had already gone in and, bled at the eyes and had all these experiences
Oh, wow.
going on.
Yeah.
So the day after our investigation, they showed me some footage. I'll give you an example. It's a room it's on the 4th floor, but it's around the corner from 401. That this psychic paranormal investigator went into, and raw footage I'm watching here, and they're holding a EMF meter at his back, and as he's walking through the room, it starts going insane, and he has this fainting spell and falls over, and he's like, the energy just overtook me.
Sure. Yeah.
He's like, now that I'm laying on the bed, go ahead, and it's not going off anymore. I said, let's go in the room. I want to check this out. So I grabbed the same type of a meter they used, which is balanced around the frequency of cell phones. I don't know if ghosts work at that frequency or not.
Yeah.
But as we go in, one of our investigators, I had to stand right where this guy was, and I ran this meter up and down her back, and it's just going nuts.
Interesting.
And then I went to the wall across, and there's a main power bus that comes into the building right through that wall. And I said, effectively, what you have here is all of this electromagnetic energy coming off of these wires, and this person is effectively a big slab of wet meat. They reflect that energy very well. Said, so the minute we move them away from it, down on the bed, that energy goes away because they're not near the source anymore. It's not a ghost. He didn't feel some sort of a spirit hop into him.
Yeah.
He happened to be next to a wall, and when he heard the meter going nuts, he acted appropriately.
Right. You're right.
So that was the first of the downfall of this documentary.
Yeah.
So then we find out a couple of months after we'd filmed that this whole thing is based on, and I'll give you the name of the documentary. It's called The Stanley Effect.
Ah.
Don't watch it.
Yeah.
The whole concept was that the Stanley Hotel, and you took the tour, right?
Yeah, we
Yeah.
did.
You might be able to confirm if they're still telling this or not. The whole reason the hotel is haunted is because of the large mineral deposits that
Yes.
are under the building.
Yeah.
Right. In the tunnel area.
Yeah, we talked about it. We did a podcast episode. We talked about it because we took all our information from the
They're,
website.
They're usually quartz, magnetite, and limestone that
Right.
we talk about. And it causes some sort of piezoelectric effect that lets the ghosts manifest. And when I found out that that's what this was all about, I'm like, now hold on a minute. That's testable.
Right.
So I said, what can we do here? Well, the first thing is, where did this story come from? Who told them there were these large deposits of these minerals under the hotel? And the whole story goes back to the first episode of Ghost Hunters when they were there.
Really?
When they said, we've done a lot of research, quote, and determined that there's these large mineral deposits under the hotel that cause this type of thing.
Interesting.
So at the time, I picked up the phone and I called Ghost Hunters guys, and I was like, where did you get this information? They said, well, we went down to the gift shop and asked the guy working behind the counter.
Whoa.
Yeah, I'm like, that's not
Yeah.
investigations, really.
God.
So they just took what he
So they
said and
took
just started projecting that
Exactly.
to everybody
Are they
else.
talking about the stuff in the basement?
Yeah.
Really?
Well, they said the whole mountain has it underneath.
Right. But
So-
in the hotel, they have in the underground area. There's.
I don't know if they
Oh,
actually say that that's where it
Yeah,
is
I
or
was
not.
curious.
Oh,
Yeah.
it gets worse.
Yeah.
So at that point, I'm like, well, I really need to find out what's underneath the hotel. Because it's, the gift shop against me.
Right.
So what I did was contacted, I thought it was the U.S. Geological Service that took care of that sort of stuff, and it turns out it isn't. It's the U.S. Department of Agriculture.
Huh.
And they do soil surveys across the country. And I was perfectly blunt with them. I was like, there's no way I can work around this, so I'm just going to tell them. So I said, here's the story. They claim there's these deposits, then they're causing the ghosts. What can you tell me? And they said, we really don't have any idea what's under the hotel because nobody's ever actually conducted a soil survey there.
Wow.
But we do have a geomagnetic satellite survey of the area. And here it is. There's no anomalies in the area. And at that point, I'm like, well, we can tell them you don't know what's under the hotel and there's no electromagnetic anomalies.
Right.
Well, as luck would have it, a month or two after that, I get an email from the Department of Agriculture, and it's been through half the government at this point. Now the title of the email is Ghosts in Our Soil.
Oh, jeez.
And they said, we haven't been out there, but we would really like to. Do you guys think you could get us into the Stanley to do a survey? Bounce this off your brain one more time. The U.S. government got a hold of us to see if we could get them into the Stanley Hotel. Why they didn't go directly,
Yeah.
I do not know.
Interesting. Yeah.
So we're crazy. We did. So we got them into the hotel. So we got to spend the weekend, actually it was 2 weekdays, doing surveys of the Stanley and some adjoining property too, to get kind of an
Right.
idea of what was going on. Because if you know anything about geology, 500 feet makes a difference.
Yeah.
And they hadn't done anything within a few miles.
Yeah.
So they really didn't know what was under
Wow.
there. We had plain old soil scientists digging in the dirt, electromagnetic induction, ground penetrating radar.
Yeah.
We had
A
five
serious operation.
we had 5 branches of the government out there using some of the coolest equipment you've ever seen, and we spent a ton of your tax money.
Yeah.
But it was worth it.
Yeah.
And they got to complete that part of the survey, which was cool. And the survey finally came out. And you know what's underneath the Stanley Hotel?
What?
Bedrock. Dirt.
Yeah. Dirt.
Wow.
Now, the dirt does consist of those minerals, but so does all dirt.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Those minerals in the large deposits that they're claiming do not exist.
Wow.
And they are still telling that on the tour for sure. That was a big part in the tour.
Well, right after that, there was a TAPS convention up at the Stanley. So I went up and personally handed the Ghost Hunter guys our report with the federal report in
Yeah.
it and said, here,
Yeah.
this is the truth. Don't do that. And I took it to the management of the hotel and all the people doing the tours. And I said, here's the story. You got some really cool ghost stories. You have an amazing history. It's a beautiful
The
building.
history is cool.
Run with it because
Right.
it needs to be told. Stop with the silliness.
I know.
A year to the day of me handing that to them, the Ghost Adventurers were there doing a live broadcast. And they took their paranormal expert from the hotel down into the tunnels. And 2 things happened. First of all, it looks like an earthquake. You can hear kind of a noise, and there's all this shaking and all this. And they're like, what was that? And she says it was just a tour group walking above, making all that noise. There was enough shaking there that it looked like an earthquake. And you have to ask yourself, this was a handheld camera. Even if there was an earthquake going on, it's not going to be shaking. They added shake in post
Oh, wow.
my
to
God.
do
Gosh.
that.
Effects. Yeah.
But then she says, it's all because of the large deposits of these minerals.
Oh,
And I'm like,
geez.
it was a year ago today.
Yeah.
that I proved to you guys it
Told you, yeah.
wasn't.
Yeah, no, they definitely still say that on the tour. And it seems like we called them and asked them ahead of time, telling them that we were going to come up. And they were like, there's nothing paranormal here anymore. Like they were focusing on the history, and it's a historic tour, not a haunted tour. It seems like there's been some type of change in protocol in the hotel in the last year of like how they handle the tours. And the tour guide kept having to say, if you want to hear more about this, I can tell you, but I have to get a confirmed yes from all of you that you want to hear about this haunted story I have or see this picture or something. It's very different the way they're going about it now.
Wow. Yeah.
Well, they don't even put Ghost anywhere on the website. It's
No, it's
just a
completely
night
different.
tour now. Like I guess the management
Historic.
now is kind of transitioning in away from, the haunted. They don't refer to it as haunted at all.
I hope so, because another fun backstory. The ghost stories at the hotel, they have very few, other than the ones that have been added since the popularity of it. But back before all of that, there was a book being written about the ghosts of the hotel. And they realized they didn't have enough ghost stories to write a book. So there's a little place down the street called the Lumber Baron Inn. Or not the Lumber Baron. That's down here. I can't think of the name of it. It'll come to me. That was up for sale at the time. It had lots of ghost stories. So the author called up and said, can I use your ghost stories? And they did. So these ghost stories got migrated from this one place to the other place.
Yeah.
Interesting.
And for no reason other than to have that happen. And they do have a handful of really fun traditional ghost stories, but
Like the Stanleys themselves
the Stanleys
say
themselves,
they're in the hotel still, and
right,
people
Miss
see them.
Stanley's, seen at the hotel's piano
Right.
playing, and
Yeah.
he's seen wandering around smoking his pipe,
Yeah.
that sort of thing.
Our tour guide told us that she's actually slammed the piano like cover on 3 different people and broke their fingers at the hotel.
But I'm like,
guests. I was
where's
there's
the
no
proof?
way.
Where's the
yeah,
they haven't.
we were all like, yeah, okay.
Yeah, not there. Now, we did have an experience while we were there. There was a book that we were helping the author doing an investigation there. And of course, everybody finds out we're there, so they're running up to us. And one of them says, up in one of these areas, we're smelling cigars. It's like, okay, that's traditional.
They
They
said
told us
that to
about
us
that.
too. Remember about the cherry
tobacco
cigarettes or
and-
something
yeah.
like
Right.
that? Some guy, some spirit likes to
smoke
those.
the cigarettes? Yeah.
Right. And these people were witnessing it. So they ran over and told us about it. Okay, well, we're going to go up. And I'm smelling it. It's like, yep, I smell it too. And then I'm like, okay, dial it back a little bit and let's think about this. Take a deep breath. Let's find out where this is coming from. There was a guy in one of the rooms really close to that area who was a little too cheap. So he brought in a hot plate and he was making bacon cheeseburgers.
Wow.
But because we were set up to smell that cherry smoke,
Yeah.
Yeah.
that's what we thought we were smelling. And we were actually smelling bacon.
That's hilarious.
That's hilarious. God.
But just being able to say, yeah, I smell that. It
Yeah.
smells like a pipe. No, it doesn't. It smells like a cheeseburger. But
Interesting. That's funny.
It's really what I find really interesting, and maybe one day we'll figure it out, is that how much of an effect your mind is over what is actually occurring around you, and how easy it is for you to be in an environment where you believe something's happening and then you sort of manifest it for yourself. The experience.
that is one of, I'll say, my specialty areas right now is human perception and what people can be coerced into believing,
Yeah.
even by themselves.
Yeah.
And a couple of things. Number one, the human body is a terrible recording device. We are very easy to manipulate. We misperceive things a lot. And then it gets worse because human memory is terrible.
Mhm.
What you remember from 10 years ago is not what you would have remembered then. It's being pieced together by bits of things that may or may not be accurate. And that's one of the reasons for like the stories that I tell or the classes that I give, things like that. I always make sure to document everything at the time, write it down, and that's what I use. Because I could start telling myself, oh yeah, well I saw, a shadow in that corner over there.
Yeah.
And after a few years of telling this story, I will remember that.
right.
And it's no less real of a memory than something that really did happen.
That's why you look at witness statements and they're all over the board sometimes for an event.
Witness testimony is absolutely useless.
Yeah.
And that's why it's not really allowed in court anymore, because people have started to realize that it's either useless because they can't remember properly, or it's useless because it's easy to tamper with them and make them remember whatever it is you want them
Exactly.
to remember.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Totally. You can manipulate the mind into believing whatever you want, really.
Absolutely.
And if you're, knowledgeable in how to do that, how to manipulate, then
Right.
it's not hard at all.
And with classes that I've taken and willing participants, I've implanted some memories, and
Interesting.
they will argue to the death that happens. It's like, oh, no, you didn't.
Wow.
I told you about that and you just made it up. So,
Yeah.
no, that's
Well,
part of what it is.
Yeah.
And, like I was saying before, that goes back to the 1980s and the whole satanic panic thing.
Yeah.
You had a few people out there that knew how to influence memory in the wrong place at the right time, and now you've got people in prison for decades for something that they didn't do.
Right.
And
That's how powerful it is.
and unfortunately, that whole craze is still going. I
Yeah.
didn't realize it until recently, but the whole concept of where that started is still happening. the psychiatric community is just rampant with that belief still.
Yeah.
But they've kind of kept it to their own,
Right.
kept it quiet. But there's still a lot of people having a lot of problems because of it. And thankfully, there's some organizations out there that are starting to help expose that.
Yeah. Thank God, because that's a real problem. But let's go ahead and transition into Stan Romanek, because I'm really interested to.
Sounds horrible.
He's like, let's not. But so for those that didn't watch the episode on Stan Romanek, he's actually, I don't know if he's still in Colorado or not, but
Yeah.
He is.
he lived down in the Colorado Springs area, I believe. And he is an interesting fella. He believes he's been abducted by aliens. He's had alien spacecraft come to his house and beam him up to the spacecraft. He's
He believes he's a chosen one. He's a star seed.
kind of like a messiah type individual.
He has star children.
Star children. Yep. He's a
Right.
star seed and all
So
of that.
creepy.
And so he really kind of, I hate saying he rose to fame, but he
He did.
Yeah, he
really-
did.
he-
in the in the UFO community for sure.
he got really popular because he captured, I think he said he captured what, like 195 events that he experienced, which is,
I lost track. Every time he got up with a video camera,
Yeah.
something happened.
Yeah.
it's like, wow.
Yeah.
So
But he really got popular when he put his documentary on Netflix. Or I guess, how did he even
It
get
was
that?
before that.
Really?
Honestly, by the time the documentary came out, he was on his decline.
Really?
Yeah.
I remember hearing about it most after the Netflix came out. As far as people telling us or requesting it, that's when I really heard about him, was from Netflix.
Okay, we know your demographic now.
yeah.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
We have a pretty young demographic. Yeah.
Right. A lot of people hear about a lot of things from Netflix. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I say, when we first started looking into his claims back in 2008, people are like, I wasn't even born yet.
Yeah.
Right. So, in perspective, his claims have been going for a long time. And they went a long time before the popularity really took off. But when the popularity took off, the claims kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And yeah, it just got off the charts by the end.
Yeah.
It really did. It went about as far as you can go with this stuff, I feel like.
He really
and
did.
as far as the claims go. So
Honestly, I appreciate it. It was super entertaining.
Well,
so.
when the claims get so bad that the community that you're in disown you, you
Seriously.
know there's got to be a problem.
Right.
Let's see here. I can give you some backstory to this. Back in, I'm going to say 2008, there was a local UFO group, and by local I mean they were in Fort Collins, that was doing a presentation, and they were having a speaker who was going to show them proof of UFOs and aliens because of evidence he'd collected. Sparked my interest, so
Yeah.
let's pack up and go.
yeah.
So we watched, and he laid out a ton of evidence then. He had the aliens had melted a prescription
Right,
bottle.
yeah.
They had implanted something in him that was going to be tested. They had found this, whatever it was that had been implanted in him, that he'd hidden in the back of a radio and nearly deafened him, trying to kill it with some sort of sonic beam. He had videos of UFOs, and that was the first one that he had, was a UFO over by Red Rocks.
Right. Yeah.
And then he had videos of a lot of weird lights. He had videos of some sort of a weird spinning red light in front of his house, in front of a pickup truck one night. Then he had multiple videos of aliens themselves, one looking in a window, one looking around a corner.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're gonna play some
most
of them.
famous ones. Yeah.
Then the pictures started popping up of aliens, and then the stories started getting bigger and bigger. And in the middle of all of this, because we kind of left him to his own, most of the people in the UFO community, they preach to their choir. They believe, they have their believers come up and talk to them. It's usually kind of a closed system, so it's not a problem. Well, several months after we'd gone to this talk, we hear that a local person has decided he wants to start what he's calling the Denver Extraterrestrial Affairs Commission, which will be a city-funded depending on how you look at it, welcoming committee, research group. I was never quite too sure.
What's the
Welcoming
purpose of it? Yeah.
Which was going to be led by his 12 people. Could be disciples. I'm going to go there.
Yeah.
But his 12 people, and they had specific job descriptions that were so specific you could tell who he'd written them for.
Yeah.
He was like, must have 2 years experience in this and written at least 4 books based on this. So, like, yeah, we know who you're aiming at. But he was going to hold this press conference because he had proof of an alien. And one of the videos he was going to show was an alien looking in a window. That was, red flags are flying all over the place at that point.
yeah.
It's like, I know what this is. So I'm like, guys, let's group up and get this taken care of because something bad is going to happen with this. And they're going to be spending our tax money for this. And we've got things like infrastructure and schools and, these things that need money.
Maybe more important things to worry about. Yeah.
Right.
So the night before his press conference, we get together, bought a domain name, and reproduced all the evidence, all the pictures,
That he
all
had
the
shown.
videos,
Yeah.
everything that we had seen and could remember, because, like I say, memory, and it was several months, and posted it on this website and let the media know about it. So the next day it happens, and for some reason, I don't know if it was a slow news day, the entire media from the planet was there.
Wow.
I mean, CNN was there, and it just all for some guy just releasing his alien video.
Yeah. That's crazy.
The perfect storm hit, and everybody was there. But he refused to release anything other than a still image of it because two possibilities, depending on when you quote him from: either A, it was under copyright because of some sort of a documentary that they were working on, or B, he wasn't allowed to release it to the public because the scientists were still working on it. And scientists, they don't like to share information. So either one of the stories didn't make sense.
Yeah.
So one of the things that happened is we released this website, and all of a sudden everybody thinks that our stuff is the legitimate source.
Oh my gosh.
So we're seeing things that pop up going, the real alien in the window video, and it's ours.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's insane. We actually had to release a making of video where the guy that was doing the puppeteering of it made out with the video or with the alien at the end
To show
just
it's
to
not
show
real.
that's not a real
Yeah.
alien.
And you guys said the quality of yours was just so much better than Stan.
We tried to res that thing down and do
Get
anything
worse.
else. But once again, we didn't remember exactly what it looked like. We just remembered there was a grainy alien in a window.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we remembered them saying it blinked, and none of us could remember if it actually blinked or not, which honestly, don't think it does.
I don't think it does.
But we had a guy that was working with us that did computer graphics, and he's like, I can put some eyelids on that
Yeah.
for you if you want.
Yeah.
Well, one of the things that his experts claimed was the alien in the window video could not have been done without a major
Yeah.
Hollywood studio
Yeah.
at least, quote, $50,000 in special
That was his
effects.
claim.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It cost us like, I don't know, $200 to do everything.
That's so funny.
And just the amount of people. We went from about 500 to 1,000 hits a day on our website to over
Wow.
5 million an hour.
Yeah. That's insane.
And yeah, the poor guy that runs the server was having a meltdown. He's like, what are you doing?
That's crazy
Like, just
traffic.
Keep it up. It'll slow down eventually. But as time went on, we started looking more and more into what this committee was supposed to be. And I went to the city auditor and I said, this guy's making this proposal. It's going to have this many people and all that. Do you have any idea what it's going to cost the city to do this? And he says, no, but I can find out for you if you'd like. So he had his, admin or whoever put up a little spreadsheet for me that showed, over a 5-year period or whatever, it'd cost this much. So I released that saying, it's going to cost the city a ton of money. We don't need to do this.
Mm-hmm.
And then we found out the only way that we could legally fight this was to form our own political committee. So we had to form a political committee to fight this thing.
Wow.
And a guy who was a really amazing wordsmith came up with a great word or a name for it. We were the Mission for Inhibiting Bureaucracy, the MIB.
Yeah,
MIB.
MIB.
So,
That's great.
Show up in black suits
That's
everywhere. And the conspiracies that were rolling around. One of the guys involved in it claimed that, I was the ringleader of it. And I had this, it was a government issued credit card with bottomless funds. And everybody else ran around me just like I was controlling the world. And we worked for some sort of secret black ops organization and all this. Eventually, this ends up getting published in the Wall Street Journal.
Wow.
And it's like, wow, this is really insane. And I think the thing that really freaked him out at the time, I was actually doing some work with the government and had a government ID at the time. And
because he's
I
paranoid
may
about
have
the government.
accidentally shown it to him.
Yeah.
But that's the thing, is it kept getting worse and worse, and we had to fight it. Because the claims that Romanek had are just insane. But then
Yeah,
they
they
started
really are.
bringing in, well, it's not just him. We have all of these other experts in the field. So we had to go and look at every classic UFO case, everything that was active currently, and kind of figure out who these people were, where they were coming from, and was there any credibility behind them. And that was a rabbit hole I never wanted to go down.
Wow.
But we had to. And just some of the claims, they just seem so over the top.
Like, give us an example. Like,
The government has met with and categorized 57 different species of extraterrestrial that have visited this Earth.
50 something?
57.
Yeah, there's someone
I think it was
around here
because
says
Heinz
that.
57, and
They just picked that
they
number?
picked that
Yeah.
number. That was Claude Swanson that said that one.
Huh.
But there were just amazing claims from all of these people. And then we got the real scientists involved, which I think is what made it a lot of fun. So you're familiar with SETI.
Yes.
Not C-SETI,
Yeah.
but SETI, the
Yeah.
real one.
Search for extraterrestrial intelligence.
These are real scientists.
Yeah.
And their head scientist, we talked to him quite a bit because we're like, there's these physicists making these claims about like the formulas that Stan's come up with in the middle of the night.
Yeah.
That say
His equations he
things.
came up with.
Right. And, every time we bring them to somebody like him or a physicist or somebody, they're like, well, we've known that.
Yeah,
It's
he
nothing
regurgitated
new. It's-
stuff. Yeah.
And the stories, when they first started out, even though they were a little extreme, there weren't a lot of them. But then he gets a community around him that really likes to hype the stories.
Yeah.
And it became kind of a feeding frenzy of making things up. And the more, this comes from personal experience, the more people believe in you, the more people want to follow you, the more powerful you feel. It's the cult leader thing.
Totally, I can see that.
And honestly, to him, he's always been just average guy.
Yeah.
Right.
He's worked at the bicycle repair shop. He's, done this other
He's got a
stuff.
family. He's, yeah.
Right. And now all of a sudden he's on national TV. He has people wanting to speak to him. That feels really good. But they aren't going to do it unless you keep adding to it.
Right.
It's like the paranormal TV show. We aren't going to keep doing
Yeah.
this unless you have other
Right,
things
you got to
happen.
keep it going.
Right.
There's got to be something new there, something exciting and,
Right.
engaging that people will want to
and
watch.
even the stories about his life, because initially that's how it was. He's like, I'm just average Joe. And I was on the Olympic ski team and I was this and I worked for this thing. And it just keeps getting bigger and bigger. And then when he was living in Colorado Springs, he claims that he had some men in black jump him.
Yeah.
And that he nearly killed them using his high-class black belt, whatever it is that he knows.
Right.
Everything just seemed to be more and more Hollywood.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it just kept getting worse and worse. And thankfully, we were fighting this Extraterrestrial Affairs Commission in Denver. And I don't know if us going into it helped make it lose. I like to think that it did. But at the other side, I'd like to think people were reasonably intelligent. But they
Right.
got it on the ballot
Oh my gosh.
That's crazy.
Insane.
That's wild. I know that this is not like anything new. This has happened in other places too, where people want to form groups to be ready for when aliens come.
We should watch some of the clips. I would like to see your reaction to
Yeah.
some of them, or have you explain what's being done in some of them.
Yeah, which ones do you want to watch? You want to watch all of them, or?
Well, just
me
the
with
classic,
whatever you got.
little peep,
Well, I've got
alien peeper.
Yeah, why don't we play the Peeping Tom, and then we'll play the recreation that they did.
Let me give you a little,
Yeah,
little
please
lead
do.
into this.
Yeah.
So the story goes that Stan thought that there was and it's why it's called Peeping Tom, that there was a peeping Tom staring in at his teenage daughter.
Right.
And he was going to videotape them doing this. So let's Occam Razors this thing again. So if you have a peeping Tom sneaking in the middle of the night,
Right.
watching your daughter,
Yeah.
is it going to be in the living room or her bedroom? This is the
Exactly.
living
This
room.
seems like, the
This is
kitchen or something. Is this the
pointless.
living room?
Where he is.
Well, and he claims that this is a second story window, but we have footage that it's not.
Yeah.
That was one of the claims that they said, they would have had to have scaffolding to get up there.
Right.
And no, they wouldn't, because it's a one-story building. In fact, there's a still frame in the documentary that shows them outside of the house.
Yeah, it does. Yeah.
Oh my
And
gosh.
You can see the window, and it's a one-story
I
house.
figured it was. I didn't even know he was trying to claim that it was the second story. It wouldn't make any sense.
Yeah, that's the thing. He said it would have required scaffolding for somebody to get up there. And if
Right.
somebody was pulling a joke on him, there's no way they could have gotten the scaffolding down in time.
Oh my
there's
God.
It's a first floor
Yeah.
window. But what happens is he says he put it up and went, I believe, to hide in the bathroom.
Yeah.
And there was a flash of light, which may show on this one. And as he comes out, he sees this thing finally dip down. And he said that when he looked out, he saw it running, scurrying back into the,
Yeah.
into the yard.
Mm-hmm.
But his acting here is
It's so good.
beautiful.
So
It is.
funny.
It really is.
Roll this, Art.
Yeah.
All right, let's watch.
Just gonna keep it rolling.
Why is he looking up? The jumping over
I
things.
know.
All right, I'm gonna go to bed.
Good night.
I'm going to go to bed, just so you know.
Yeah, there's that flash.
Yeah.
God, I think I saw the little bastard. Oh man, what is that?
Little bastard.
I like his hop. Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's a great acting right there. A plus.
Then he runs. He's like little
plus.
Yeah. So that's the famous Peeping Tom
Gosh.
video. Play the gray alien comes to visit again.
No, nobody outside. No clue what the heck's going on. But, oh well. Oh my god. What the fuck is that? Holy shit. Oh my god, what's it doing? Holy shit. Oh man. Where the fuck did it go? Oh my god, I can't believe it. Where'd it go? Where'd it go? Where'd it go? Holy shit. Oh my god. Is it? I can't see it anymore. Where'd it go? I can't believe that. I can't believe what I just freaking saw. Oh my god. Oh my god. That's amazing.
He went to the Blair Witch School of Cinematography.
Clearly, dear God.
One of my favorite claims is that one day he blacks out, wakes up in the yard, his wife finds him, and he's wearing a nightgown. It turns out it's Betty Hill's nightgown. You know, Betty's Barney Hill.
Yeah.
Yeah. So time doesn't mean anything up there. So they put her nightgown on him by mistake.
Oh, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because I'm sure it's the exact same aliens that
Right.
abducted them. But the last thing with Stan that I wanted to talk about was just there's an interesting clip that I'll show you. I don't know if you've ever seen him. He was like interviewed at a UFO conference, and he's talking about how he is like, I don't know if he thinks he's possessed or he can channel this entity, because he goes from like UFOs, aliens, then all of a sudden he's got the shadow people in his house, and he's got the...
One of the things that he claimed that he was taking pictures of shadow people in his house. In fact, in one shot, he claimed that they were holding the remote control to his television.
Right, yeah.
So once again, we were recreating everything. So I have a beautiful shot inside of my house of the shadow figure with this remote control floating there. Like, this is not proof.
Yeah.
Anybody can do it.
Right. Yeah, no, it's I don't know. It seems like a no-brainer that clearly he's just making this stuff up, but it's crazy that a lot of people believe him, and you know, he can get, or he did get paid speaking engagements at UFO conferences. Janelle, play the
And he's an international bestseller.
that's crazy to think about.
He isn't. If you look at how Amazon categorizes books so specifically, if you put out a book today about podcasting about Stan Romanek, you would all of a sudden become
A bestseller.
bestseller because you're the only one in the category.
That's actually
Right.
writing about that. Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah.
What is his category? Does he fit into just regular
Well,
paranormal? Or
they shotgunned it into like 1,000 different categories.
Of course.
Well, which is what you do. You know, it's kind of keywords. That's how people
Yeah.
will find it. But when you do that, you hit some weird combinations. And yeah, he's a best-selling author now.
That's crazy. Play the interview clip about his hypnotic regressions. This is him being interviewed at a UFO conference talking about this thing that is inside him.
Anybody that's gone through hypnotic regression, it's not what you think. It's not like they can control your mind. You remember most everything that happens. It's like you're in a deep daydream. Well, I thought I fell asleep. And when I came out, I apologized for falling asleep, except the hypnotherapist and my wife were sitting there going, and I knew something had happened. And they explained to me that my voice patterns had changed. My mannerisms had changed. It was like I wasn't me anymore.
Right.
And it scared the hypnotherapist so bad that she stopped the regression.
So, and what was it that was being said in this other?
Not much in this particular regression, not much at all. Eventually, I met a person named Dr. Leo Sprinkle.
Oh yeah, lovely.
Who is a wonderful man. He's
Yeah,
a very
he's
dear
very special.
friend now. But he agreed to kind of explore this. And so we had an appointment set up with him later on, and eventually the same thing happened, and this time he ran with it.
Great. So
And-
what came from that?
Oh gosh, all kinds of information, and I honestly, it's very hard. It's very hard for me to talk about because I really don't believe in that sort of stuff. I really don't believe in it.
So what is it that you don't believe? Can you? I mean, without perhaps spending too much time going, can you just
Well,
sort of the concept? Basic
How do I
concepts?
explain this? When I went through the hypnotic regression process with Dr. Leo Sprinkle, I changed again. I thought I fell asleep.
Right. Okay.
My voice changed, my mannerism changed, and whatever this thing was that was now coming out of me had concepts of things that there was no way I could have understood. You used words, and luckily all my hypnotic regression sessions are videotaped because when I was done, some of the words this thing used, I had to look up because I didn't understand them.
So, again, can you just run by some of the ideas that are so out there that?
I've had
you
about
mentioned?
altogether probably about 18 to 20 sessions with whatever this thing is coming out of me. And again, I don't like to talk about it because I don't know if I have an altered personality that's coming through. I can't see that happening because this thing, whatever it is coming through me, can read minds. It has literally stopped phones from ringing and teleported the telephone from one side of a room, the building, all the way to the other side of the building through solid walls.
Yes.
I thought that clip was super entertaining because he's just clearly bullshitting, and you know, it's like I have this thing coming out of me, but I can't explain it, and I'm saying things, but he doesn't divulge any specific information.
Well, and that's the thing. with any claims of special knowledge, which this would be, because you have math, you have knowledge of these 10th planet, all these things that he has. They're coming out with all of these things that we already have information about.
Right. There's nothing really new.
No. And that was the problem with all of the people that we talked to. They're like, he's not doing anything new.
Right.
He's using the same claims that people have been using. And the evidence that he's shown is either easily faked or absolutely obviously faked. So how can you take him seriously?
Yeah.
And, unfortunately, in the UFO community, it's not uncommon to have that lack of proof of anything, really.
Yeah.
But, at the same time, and let me get my opinion straight here so people don't ask. Do I believe that extraterrestrials exist?
I was just about to ask you that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You do?
They have to.
Right.
Okay.
If you look at the amount of possible places that are habitable in space, to think that we are the only civilization, the only life
Intelligent
form,
beings.
it's a huge egotistical problem. However, using the Drake equation as a good example, the amount of time that it took from Big Bang to us evolving to this point is kind of a known number. So we have to say, how long would it take for something to have evolved to the point of having interstellar travel?
Right.
Have not accidentally or intentionally wiping itself out, which is a huge possibility.
Right.
And then coming up with the technology that it would take to traverse huge amounts of space, the energy, and I use that word properly,
Yeah.
that it would take to get across that amount of space. If that time had passed, which it doesn't look like it has, would they come to just peek in our windows? I mean, that was an expensive, long trip.
Yeah.
Now, I will quote one of my favorite authors, Douglas Adams. Douglas Adams, Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy.
Yes.
His thing of what he called, I'm going to misquote the name that he gave them. But basically what UFO sightings was rich teenage kids of extraterrestrials. They'd go out and they'd find some, back world, and they'd come down, land in front of some unsuspected farmer that nobody would ever believe, and just beep at them for a second and leave.
Totally. That's
It's really funny to think about.
That makes sense. But, and that's always been the thing with the ghosts, with the UFOs and all of that. What's the motivation?
right.
Right.
Why would an alien come down that far to peek in a window?
Absolutely.
Or why would something come down if they've had the technology to stay hidden this entire time? Why all of a sudden in some guy's backyard does it show
Exactly.
up?
And why Stan?
Right. And we're going back to like Stephen Hawking, Carl Sagan,
Yeah.
people like that have said any race that was significantly advanced enough to do that sort of a thing, we would be insignificant to them.
Right.
Oh, absolutely.
It would be like us running across an anthill. They just wouldn't.
We're not this crazy, interesting
Exactly.
science
We're-
experiment that they're just desperate to
Well,
get
if
a
you think about
glimpse
it,
at.
we're super primitive still.
Yeah.
compared
Oh, yeah.
To,
And they were like, well, they found out that we have nuclear technology. Well, to us, that's kind of a neat new thing. But in the big scheme of things, it probably is kind of like rubbing two sticks together and finding out fire comes out of it.
Yeah, I was about to say, if you have the technology to get all the way over here, bombs are like woo-ha.
Yeah.
Like, who cares?
Exactly. And there's a lot of theories that that aliens are concerned about us having access to
Right.
nuclear bombs, and they're here to protect us,
That
or
would
they're
come back to
watching
the film
over.
The Day the Earth Stood Still. That's where that theory comes
Yeah.
from.
Okay.
So I have kind of a question. Since recently, in the past, few years, the government has started coming out and, with confirming that some UFO clips are in fact UFOs, whatever
Right.
that means.
Well, let me stop you
Yeah,
there.
so what's your opinion on that?
I'm going to define that right there. UFO does not mean alien
Right.
visiting.
Yeah.
Unidentified flying object.
object.
That's
Exactly.
exactly what it
Whether
means.
that's spy or who knows what it is.
That means whoever's looking at it and whoever's analyzed it doesn't know what it is. That doesn't mean anything else. And I think that's where the government, ours and many others, releasing all of these different things, none of them have pointed towards any type of extraterrestrial intelligence. They've pointed towards, we don't know what that is.
Right.
And
That's true.
I'll dial it back to people asking about the ghost investigations we've done. I have, so Occam's razor once again. We have a way of doing this where you start with the simplest, easiest explanation.
Right.
And you work towards that paranormal explanation. But you have to get through everything. And you start realizing that that paranormal goalpost keeps moving away from you. Because while I may not be able to explain it, I'm going to call in an expert that
That can.
I think may be able to have the answer. And if they don't, well, there's somebody else. And
Yeah.
it just keeps getting farther and farther away. So I tell people it's okay to say, I don't know what it is. And that kills a lot of people in the science community when I say, I had something, I don't know what it was. Does that mean it's a ghost? Does that mean it's a UFO? Does that mean it's whatever? No. And you need to keep looking at it. But it's okay to say, I don't know.
Right. I think a lot of people are uncomfortable with not having an opinion on something and
Right.
just, yeah.
And especially with a lot of people in the paranormal field, that's their thing. They're like,
Right.
well, it's either provable or a ghost.
Exactly.
No, it's provable or you don't know. Could it be a ghost? Sure, why not?
Yeah.
It's a possibility.
Right.
Yeah.
Have you seen anything paranormal that you did believe?
Or that you were really kind of like, wow, holy shit, there is not an explanation I can come up with for
A
this.
wow, holy shit moment.
A wow, holy shit moment.
Not really. I mean, I had some experiences that confused me. Yes. I kind of went into this, but I'll give you the story. We were at a house that one room was specific to the paranormal activity. And of course, that's where the entire family had decided to sleep at night. There's like 4 generations of them, and they're sleeping in the haunted bedroom.
Oh my gosh, of course.
So we go and we set up, and we're going to watch the room, see what's going on in it. And while we use a lot of the same equipment that you would see on a ghost hunting TV show, we know how it works, and we use it more for documenting what's going on than trying to find a ghost. Well, we've been up, 36 hours straight. And it's getting towards the middle of the night, and we realize the family's sitting with us. Now, 2 things, and I'm kind of stepping away from this, that we do that are a little different. First of all, we never turn off all the lights in a room because we want to keep the conditions the same as whatever it was like when whoever had that experience had it.
Right. They're not just sitting in the dark.
Right. How many people, I mean, we all know, or you may have even had some sort of a ghostly experience. Were you sitting in a pitch dark room?
Right.
You can't see in a pitch dark room. And the other one is, and this is kind of a side shot, but trying to stay open-minded and scientific protocol. So I'm going to go into a room with my handheld recorder and ask questions of the ghost. Are you the person that died here? What's your name? Go home. You're talking to the ghost. The minute that you start doing that, you are vested in the fact that there is a ghost there because you're trying to talk to it.
Talk to them. Right.
Now, I always tell people, if something decides to talk to me while I'm in the room, I'll go ahead and answer. But I can't start that conversation because there's probably nothing there with me.
Right.
So we're in this house watching this empty room, and I said, don't you guys normally go to sleep about this time of day? We're trying to stay away from you and let you go about your daily routine. So they decided to go in shifts. Like, fine, whatever. So a couple of them went in, slept for about an hour, got up, came out. And I said, okay, who's next? mother and daughter look over at me and they said, well, we'll go in, but we're not going in without you. I'm like, if the big green thing jumps out of the closet, I'm running out the door with it. I just don't get
We're
this.
both booking it out of here. Yeah.
But I was like, okay, fine, whatever. This is the one of the very few times we had the lights completely out, because that's what they did while they slept. So we fire up the infrared cameras. No, they don't see ghosts. Yes, they see outside of our vision.
Spectrum of light. Yeah.
So you can see where people can't. So they're on the bed snoring their heads off. And it felt like something was slapping me on the side of the face.
Really? Huh.
And you just see me looking like a complete moron on the video going, does anybody see anything in here with me? But, in retrospect, I'd been up 36 hours. I'd been told terrifying stories about the stuff that had gone on in this room. And now I'm locked in there almost alone in the pitch dark. Could something have been slapping me that was, paranormal? Yeah. But could there have been an absolute psychological setup for me to have convinced myself something was going on?
Right.
More likely.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, you haven't been sleeping at all for 36 hours. Your mind can start doing crazy things.
Absolutely.
Was it like a physical touch? Like you felt something?
I felt just what you did right there.
So would you move your face at all, or just sit there and you just feeling something?
I move and it still kept kind of. But
that's so weird to me, because it seems like you of all people would just not. Like, how would you feel that and it's not anything?
I need more proof.
Wow. That's interesting.
And I understand that humans are, once again, horribly confusable, very easily influenced, and I put myself in a terrible condition.
Right.
And it's been a lot of things like that, where it's like it's just as easily explainable by something physiological,
right,
as it is something paranormal. And we know that the physiological conditions exist.
It's hard though.
It's definitely making me look at everything we've covered differently.
Yeah, and I mean, I think the more I learn about the human brain and just like consciousness in general, you start to realize like how truly powerful our minds are, and how easy it is for us to start to see things that aren't there, and start to, the fact that we can, like psychedelics, for example, and things like that, you start going, down that road, and you start realizing like your brain is capable of really, really, really crazy experiences. So, like you said, the physiology is like, you believe that if you were in that same room and you had a great night's sleep the night before and you're completely fine, you may have had a different experience in there. But yeah, I mean, we'll go ahead and wrap it up there. I mean, I'm sure we could sit here and talk all night. This has been so much fun.
Our listeners probably have tons of questions.
Yeah. Seriously, we could talk about this stuff for days as well.
We might have to have you come back and debunk some more stuff.
Yeah, I'm sure we'll have more things.
I'm always available.
Yeah.
Great. Yeah, it was really interesting.
But thank you again, Bryan, for coming on the show. And is there anywhere people can follow you? Obviously, your website.
Let's see. I've got the website, RockyMountainParanormal.com. There's a podcast that someday may come to life on there.
Oh, that'd be cool.
All horror stuff.
Yeah, awesome.
Lots of weird little side projects and things like that. Do photography as a side business. Talks, lectures, classes, all that sort of stuff. So if anybody needs that, I'm available. And because I'm so into the horror community, coming up next September is the Colorado Festival of Horrors.
Oh, really?
And I've buried myself into that one too.
Oh, cool. I might have to go check that out.
That will be really fun. It's the weekend of September the 11th.
Oh, wow.
Okay.
Interesting.
Just Colorado Festival of Horror. And
cool.
they actually have some confirmed guests now.
Oh, really? Awesome.
Oh, nice.
That'll be fun.
Cool. Well, thank you so much for joining us. And yeah, hopefully you guys enjoyed this episode. We covered a lot, man. We went deep into a lot of things, but yeah, this was a lot of fun, and we'll definitely do more things like this in the future. So,
yes.
But we'll go ahead and wrap it up there. Thanks again for listening, and we'll see you guys next time.